everyone, time for some more chocolate. I'm glad you could join me again this week. So this week I'm going to talk about a kind of chocolate that I have yet to have done on this channel, and that is raw chocolate. And the company that we're going to talk about today is Chocolate Conspiracy out of Utah, United States. So Chocolate Conspiracy was started in 2009 by AJ Wentworth. AJ is from Utah. He grew up in eastern Utah and small town upbringing. Dad was a teacher kind of thing. He went to southern Utah, Dixie State University for school, and then he started moving around the country. So first he went to Washington State, where he got interested in food, although that was never really a life goal for him to be involved in the food industry or working as a food person. He became interested in food. He became a raw food vegan. Then he went to Arizona, southern Arizona, where he went to a place called the Tree of Life, that's what it was. Took me a minute to remember. Tree of Life Rejuvenation Center, which was a meditation center and holistic kind of wellness center, where he stayed for 3.5 months. And that's where actually the chef introduced him to raw cacao. And the chef showed him how to process the raw cacao by hand using a mortar and pestle or something maybe similar to a metate. But that's where he first learned about raw cacao. So after that, he went on to work at an organic farm in California. Then you hit 2008, where you have the financial crisis and getting a job starts to become harder. So because he was interested in nutrition at this point, in 2009, he decided to go to New York to study at the Institute for Integrative Nutrition to learn more about nutrition and to learn to become a health coach. So he went there to New York for a while and learned to become a health coach, and then he moved back to Utah, where he was a health coach and he had a side gig of making chocolate. So this is 2009. So it started off as a side business. He was still a health coach. By the time he got 3 years in, the chocolate business kind of took over the health coaching business. So when he started the chocolate, the Conspiracy chocolate, he was not himself a raw foodist anymore. He was using raw cacao in the bars, but now he says he focuses more on using local ingredients and eating local foods. So he's had an interesting journey as a chocolate maker, because in 2009 he started making his chocolate with cocoa powder, cocoa butter, and sweetener. And that, if you're into craft chocolate and you know about chocolate, that sounds pretty gross just by itself. But he was lucky enough to have access to Matt Caputo of Caputo's Deli here in Salt Lake City, who is one of the largest distributors of craft chocolate and knows quite a bit about craft chocolate. So AJ had Matt taste his chocolate, and Matt told him that it was pretty awful and that it was not really chocolate. So that's actually, to AJ's credit, he took that advice and changed, which is awesome, because sometimes people can get really dug in when you say something to them like that. And to his credit, he took the advice. So he went from using cocoa powder, cocoa butter, and sweeteners like maple sugar in the first year in 2009. By the third year he was making chocolate, he was using cocoa mass, which is, you already buy the cocoa beans ground up. So he was buying the cocoa mass from Picari, actually, and that was obviously making for better chocolate. By the 6th year, he was grinding his own beans from Peru and using sweeteners like maple and honey and coconut palm. He doesn't use cane sugar. So one of the tricky things that he kind of had to figure out all on himself and teach himself and learn himself was integrating honey into chocolate. So we all know the adage that chocolate and water don't mix. Well, honey obviously has a very high water content. So things can get weird when you try to make a chocolate bar with honey. It can crystallize, it can get stiff, it can get waxy. The high water content can behave weirdly, making tempering really difficult. So he had to kind of figure this out on his own and work out his own formulas to incorporate honey as a natural sweetener. He had heard, AJ had heard really bad stories about putting honey in melangers. So he was aware of that problem. But basically what happens is when you're mixing the chocolate and honey in a melanger, the longer you mix, you're basically whipping the honey up. And so what happens is the volume increases, so they can only fill the melangers that at half capacity, and you can't use a continuous tempering machine for that reason. So he had lots of test batches, let's call them, lots of lost chocolate, lots of test batches to figure out how to incorporate honey. And at the first he didn't really have a formula. It was a smell and taste and how does it look kind of thing, is it working, but now he's figured that all out. And he actually favors for his chocolate fruity honeys, cactus flower honeys, over things like a buckwheat honey. And when he first started using local Utah honey, he had a hard time getting something consistent, but now he works with White Lake Farms honey, and they have over 800 hives all over the state, and when they blend their honey it gets a very consistent taste. So he's done really well at figuring out this honey part. So the other part that is unusual about his bars is that he uses raw cacao. Now there are other makers that use raw cacao. He was early on in the raw cacao, 2009. He was one of the earlier ones. But what makes something a raw food? So you've probably heard about the raw food movement. What makes something raw? So there's no legal definition of raw. It's just a thing that kind of a consensus has come to, and not even that, because even amongst chocolate people you'll hear raw or not. It's kind of, yeah, it's kind of a you decide sort of thing. So in general, a raw food is never cooked, never pasteurized, never refined. A lot of people will give you a temperature definition. I don't know where that temperature definition comes from. It may have having to do with denaturing proteins, but I couldn't quite nail it down. Never heated to over 104 to 118 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 40 to 48 degrees Celsius. So if you know the process of how chocolate is made with cacao, you'll say, wait a minute. When they ferment the beans, the temperature regularly gets above that. So how does that work? And also, if you're familiar with how cocoa is made, you will know that when beans come to get to makers, they're not clean. They're dirty. They have to be sorted. Rocks, bugs, sticks, pieces of plastic, weird things have to be pulled out of those beans. So this was something that I was interested in learning about before I started eating. This is one of my reservations always about eating raw chocolate, because when you go to the cocoa farm, sometimes you see things that are a little bit, ooh, I'm not going to eat that one straight off the road where the chickens are running around sort of thing. So that was one of my reservations when I was first introduced to raw chocolate. But he now sources his beans. So AJ sources his beans from a co-op in Peru, Co-op Atalaya, I think maybe is how you pronounce it. It's in the Ucayali region, which you've probably heard of because you've heard of beans from Ucayali before. It's members, there's about 300 members. They're native to the Achaninka tribes. They use a variety of beans. They're certified organic, they're certified fair trade, certified kosher, non-GMO, non-hybridized beans. The beans, so what makes them okay when they've not been roasted? So roasting is kind of the step where you get rid of bacteria. If you're a mass market person, it's you roast the heck out of them to get rid of all the bacteria and mold and other off flavors that could come in there. With the raw beans, so what they do is they lightly ferment them for about 12 hours, which is not very long at all for the fermentation process. Then they wash and they polish the beans. They take extra time to clean them so that when they actually get to AJ, he doesn't really need to do a lot of sorting of the beans, or if he does any sorting at all. So, okay, you're saying, wait, there was a fermentation process in there. Did it hit the magical temperature number? I don't know for sure, but one of the things that he says is that fermentation is a natural enzymatic process. So maybe that's different when you're considering raw foods versus cooking it or roasting it in an oven, one being a natural process, the other not being natural. So the beans are then vacuum sealed in a bag, and they are, because they're vacuum sealed, they've been cleaned, they do not require any spraying, they do not require any irradiation, they're shipped by air instead of on a slow boat, and usually from Peru for the beans to get from Peru to AJ takes about 6 months. So pretty fast. The beans, so if you know, regularly beans are dried and packed in jute bags, so they're not vacuum sealed. Their air is flowing through them, hopefully, to prevent them from molding. So there's a whole different process for these raw cacao beans that he's using that make them as safe as other processors of raw beans. So he actually doesn't age his beans at all. He doesn't let the chocolate sit on the shelf. He doesn't let the beans sit on the shelf. He prefers the raw cacao fresher. And his beans, when they come in, actually have quite a bit of humidity still left in them. So that also affects how he processes the beans and how he has to work with the mass itself. So I've got 2 bars from him. I have the Blackberry ginger bar, and I have his coconut lime bar. This is one of his more popular bars, actually. He does have a plain 70, I can't remember if it's 70 or 75% dark bar. His most popular bars are the coconut lime and the black lager, I think. I'll talk about those a little bit later. But today I think I'm gonna open the Blackberry ginger. So let's flip the camera around and give it a try. Okay, so I just wanted to show you the packaging on the bar a little bit. So these designs that are on the outside of his chocolate bar are pretty unique. AJ wanted to create an old English feel, and he happened to come across a 19th century book of poems by Walter Crane called A Floral Fantasy in an Old English Garden. And so he uses those drawings, on his chocolate bars, and I think they're quite unique and add understated elegance to them. So here's his coconut lime bar. We're not going to try that one today. That's one of his more popular ones. He does have flavored ones that are seasonal. He has Christmas ones that come out, so you have to watch for those if you want them. This Blackberry ginger bar is year-round. Let's take a look. So he's got the Chocolate Conspiracy, raw artisan chocolate. That's a picture of a cacao flower. Salt Lake City, Utah. Honey sweetened, so he doesn't use cane sugar, and organic cacao. What else do we have in here? Blackberry ginger chocolate bar. Okay, let's look at the back. Bean to bar artisan chocolate, 75%. Whoops. He is using Peruvian beans, many of you know, Peruvian beans can be very, very good. So this is interesting here. He uses an 18-year blackberry ginger balsamic vinegar, 18-year aged. That gives an interesting flavor and a touch of ginger oil. And this is also interesting considering his holistic approach to food. Ginger is called the universal spice because it balances all body types and contains health benefits. So here's the list of things that he doesn't have. He's gluten-free, soy-free, dairy-free, paleo-friendly, uses natural honey, no artificial flavors, no preservatives, no refined sugar, and fair trade. Here's the ingredients. Raw organic cacao, cacao butter, honey, the balsamic vinegar we talked about, and organic ginger oil. He's got an expiration date because he doesn't use any preservatives. And what does it say on the side over here? Oh, okay. So just a nice little quote. All right, so let's open this up and give it a taste. See how it looks. He does have a unique mold. Uh-oh, my bar broke. So it's kind of got the honeycomb pattern to it. And it's a nice looking bar. I mean, look at the shine that it has on it. He's figured out the tempering with all that honey business that he had to do to figure this out. He's figured it out. And it's got a nice aroma when you first smell it, when you open the package. He's on his way to switching packages all to this kind of package, I believe, from this sort of package. So let's see here. I'm gonna break off a piece, and like I said, it looks nice. It's got a nice shine. It looks like it's in temper. You can see that there, that it looks like it's in temper. I'm gonna warm it up a little bit with my thumb to warm up the cocoa butter that melts at or near body temperature and release some of the volatile oils. We'll smell it and then we'll taste it and we'll see where we are. Okay, so I didn't do a snap, and let's see if we can hear a snap here. So this is a decent snap. When you add honey to a bar, it changes pretty much everything about it, but it also changes the snap. But this has a nice snap considering there's honey in there. So with this bar, it's nice. You don't get an overwhelming raw flavor. It is definitely fruit forward. You get the fruitiness of the raw cacao. You get the blackberry. I don't get the ginger so much in the flavor. I get it retronasally. So when I take a breath in with the chocolate in my mouth, I kind of taste it through the back of my throat, nose area. You do get the tartness of the vinegar. So it's an interesting flavor combination that is not... When raw cacao first showed up on the scene, you either had a really good bar or you had a bar that had a weird texture and tasted like mud and was just weird. They've figured out raw cacao a little bit better, and AJ has done that too, and he's got these interesting flavors that he has mixed in there. I also think I'm going to open this other one too, just because. Why not? Alright, so this one has what I think is the old packaging. I think he's shifting to the pouch packaging, and it has a different mold. That's what I thought. So they also have this beautiful old mold like this. Mine's cracked again. You can see raw organic heirloom cacao, honey sweetened. Pretty. And again, look at the shine on that. Such a nice job tempering. And there's your coconut. So this one has raw organic, I ripped it, organic cacao beans, honey, cacao butter, lime oil, coconut shreds, smoked coconut lime sea salt. What a fun ingredient. All right, let's give this one a try too. So again, it's got a mild snap, most likely due to the honey, because I don't see any other issues with tempering. It looks really well tempered. So with this one, this is a really nice bar and unexpected in its flavors based on what's in there. So with the raw cacao, you don't get the really roasted cacao notes like brownie or fudge or those things coming through. With this one, when you smell it, you really get the lime essential oil coming through. Not so much in the flavor though, in the taste. The coconut is also not overwhelming, and neither is the salt. It's a really well balanced flavor combination. I can see why it's one of his more popular bars that he has. So let's flip the camera around and we'll finish up. All right, so those were two of AJ's bars. Fun flavors that he has in his chocolate, but even if you get the just plain dark, there'll be some interesting flavor notes in there as well. So one of his more popular bars include some alcoholic based bars that he's made, and he does things a little bit different once again than other people. So a lot of people now are doing what's called barrel aged. He tried that and he felt that there was not enough flavor coming through with the end product. So what he does instead is that he soaks the nibs in whatever alcohol he's using, then he dehydrates the nibs, and then he makes the chocolate from there. And he finds that that really brings the notes of the alcohol through in the final product. So his black lager bar is one of his more popular bars. He's got other alcoholic bars in there. He's working on making a 6-pack of alcoholic bars. Breweries are actually contacting him now to work with him. So he's got a lot going on in that area. Something else that he has done innovative, which is recently in the past year, he had a, I don't know what you call it, a submersive experience that happened at his factory. So he had a performance called Thank You Theobromine in conjunction with a dance company, where it was a submersive dance theater production that went on as you went through his factory. I did not actually get to attend it, but it sounds really interesting and really creative and really out of the box thinking that you would expect to come from someone like AJ. So because of COVID, AJ has scaled back on his retail and factory experiences right now, but his plans are to eventually go back to a small town, to leave Salt Lake City. He doesn't want to be a big factory. He wants to continue to have a smaller distribution with specialty markets and doing collaborations with breweries, things like that allow him to maintain a profitable size, but yet maintain a size where he's still able to craft chocolate, still able to be an artisan chocolate maker. So that's where he's hoping to go with the future of Chocolate Conspiracy. So that's one of your options if you are interested in raw cacao. Next week, we'll talk about another chocolate maker. And if you liked this video, please make sure that you hit the button and to subscribe. So thanks, and we'll see you next time.